The December wind sliced through Silver Creek like a blade. Eleanor Hayes clutched her threadbare shawl as she climbed the weathered steps to Patterson's General Store, where the monthly town council meeting was already underway. Have you ever felt trapped by circumstances beyond your control? Eleanor was about to discover just how far others would go to dictate her future. Inside, tobacco smoke and masculine authority hung thick. 7 men sat around a makeshift table, their expressions grave. At the head sat Marcus Brennan, his slicked hair gleaming under lamplight. His banker's vest strained across his prosperous middle. Every head turned as she entered. Conversations died like embers in winter rain. "Mrs. Hayes," Marcus said, rising with theatrical courtesy, "how gracious of you to join us." Eleanor took the only remaining chair and waited, knowing whatever brought her here wouldn't be pleasant. "The matter of the Hayes property has become a concern for the entire community," Marcus continued. The words struck like ice water. "You mean my home? A woman alone can't properly manage a cattle operation," Doc Morrison interjected. "I've been managing just fine for 2 years," Eleanor replied, though they all knew the ranch was struggling. Marcus leaned forward. "The ranch is failing, not to mention the impropriety of a young woman living alone with only a child for company." Impropriety. The word that followed widows like a shadow. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "The council believes the best solution would be for you to remarry," Samuel Porter said. Eleanor felt her cheeks burn with indignation. These men had been discussing her life as if she were property. "And if I choose not to remarry?" Marcus's smile never wavered. "The bank holds your mortgage. If you haven't secured a husband by Christmas, we'll have no choice but to foreclose." "Christmas, 6 weeks away. Of course, I would be honored to offer myself as a candidate," Marcus added. "When life backs you into a corner, do you surrender or do you fight?" Eleanor stood. "I appreciate the council's concern. I'll give your suggestion the consideration it deserves." She turned toward the door, boot heels clicking with military precision. "Christmas is December 25th. That gives you exactly 6 weeks," Marcus called. Eleanor paused at the door. "I'm aware of when Christmas falls, Mr. Brennan. I'm also aware this is still America, where a person has the right to make their own choices." "Within reason," Marcus replied, "and within the bounds of what's proper." She opened the door, letting in cold air. "Good evening, gentlemen." Outside, Eleanor tried to calm the storm in her chest. 6 weeks to find a husband or lose everything she and Robert had built together. As she rode down Main Street, she passed familiar landmarks. At the edge of town, she saw a figure hunched over scrap wood behind Jensen's carpentry shop. Nathan Cross looked up as she passed. He was a large man, built like a draft horse with gentle eyes. The town considered him simple, a man whose mind had never fully developed. Their eyes met briefly. Nathan touched his hat brim in courtesy. Eleanor nodded in return, noting the careful way he'd arranged wood scraps into neat piles. Sometimes the people we overlook hold the greatest surprises. Tomorrow she would begin the humiliating process of finding a husband. Robert had been her choice, her love, her partner. Marrying for convenience felt like betrayal. But Jamie needed a roof over his head. The ranch needed someone with strength to make it prosper. 6 weeks to Christmas. 6 weeks to find a miracle or lose everything. The morning after the council meeting dawned gray and cold. A letter from the bank sat on her kitchen table, confirming everything Marcus had said. Missed payments, accumulating interest, foreclosure looming. She was reaching for her coat when Jamie burst through the door. "Ma, there's a man fixing our fence." She followed Jamie outside. Sure enough, Nathan Cross worked near the creek, his broad back bent over the fence post as he twisted wire with practiced efficiency. Eleanor approached cautiously. Nathan looked up, his face flushing red. "Morning, Mrs. Hayes. Hope you don't mind. Saw your fence was down." She studied the repair work. The post stood straight and solid. It was better work than she could have managed herself. "That's very kind, Mr. Cross, but I should pay you for materials." Nathan shook his head vigorously. "No payment, just being neighborly." Jamie studied Nathan with frank curiosity. "Are you really simple, like everybody says?" "Jamie?" Eleanor's voice carried sharp rebuke, but Nathan just smiled. "Simple's not so bad," he told the boy. "Simple means you see things clear without fancy words getting in the way." The answer surprised Eleanor with its unexpected wisdom. "Ma says we might have to leave the ranch," Jamie continued. Nathan's eyes shifted to Eleanor. "Sometimes things work out better than expected. What if the answer to your prayers doesn't look like what you expected?" The following weeks fell into a comfortable pattern. Nathan appeared at the ranch every other day, a loose board needing attention, cattle wandering near the creek. Each visit lasted longer, and Eleanor found herself looking forward to his quiet presence. Jamie had taken to Nathan like a duck to water. Nathan answered each query with patience that amazed Eleanor. She'd never seen her son so engaged with learning. This particular afternoon, she watched through the window as Nathan taught Jamie how to properly stack firewood. The lesson involved mathematics, calculating winter needs, measuring cord lengths. Jamie absorbed it all like a sponge. The sound of approaching hooves interrupted her thoughts. Marcus Brennan rode up, his black horse stepping precisely. Eleanor opened the door before he could knock. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, removing his hat with flourish. "I hope I'm not intruding." He settled at her kitchen table with the proprietary air of a man already considering himself master of the house. "I wanted to discuss our arrangement," Marcus began. "Christmas is only 3 weeks away. It's time we made our understanding official." His assumption that she'd already accepted his proposal rankled. "I haven't given you my answer yet, Mr. Brennan." "Of course not, my dear, but we both know it's the sensible choice." He surveyed her kitchen with calculating eyes. "This place has good bones, but it needs a man's touch." Through the window, Eleanor could see Nathan lifting Jamie onto his shoulders. Her son's laughter rang out like silver bells, pure and joyful. Marcus followed her gaze, his expression darkening. "I see you've been entertaining the village idiot." The casual cruelty made Eleanor's hands still. "Mr. Cross has been helping with repairs." "That's very charitable, but hardly appropriate." "What will people think?" "I'm not sure I care what people think," Eleanor replied, surprising herself. "Have you ever reached a breaking point where you realized other people's opinions matter less than your own happiness?" "You should care. A woman in your position can't afford to be careless with her reputation," Marcus said, his tone carrying an implied threat. "Nathan Cross is a good man," Eleanor said quietly. "He's been kind to Jane, helpful to me. I won't have him spoken of disrespectfully in my home." "My dear Eleanor, I think sentiment is clouding your judgment. Men like that are unpredictable. You must consider your son's safety." The suggestion that Nathan might pose danger to Jamie was absurd. "Nathan has never shown anything but kindness to Jamie," she said firmly. "As your future husband, it's my responsibility to protect you from situations that might compromise your reputation." Future husband? The presumption made Eleanor's chest tight with anger. "I haven't accepted your proposal, Mr. Brennan." His smile was patronizing. "We both know it's the logical choice. I can offer security, respectability, and a future for your son. What more could you want?" Love, she thought. Companionship, respect, understanding. "I need more time to consider my options." Time is a luxury you can't afford. After Christmas, if you haven't secured a husband, foreclosure proceedings begin immediately. Eleanor turned to face him. "I understand the timeline, Mr. Brennan." "Good. Then you'll understand why I must insist you discontinue your association with Nathan Cross. As your intended husband, I can't allow that to continue." The authoritarian tone, the assumption of control, it all crystallized into perfect clarity. "You can't allow it?" she repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. "What I understand, Mr. Brennan, is that you're presuming to make decisions about my life before I've agreed to let you into it." Eleanor moved to the door and opened it. "I think this conversation has gone on long enough." Marcus's expression hardened. "I hope you'll reconsider your attitude, Mrs. Hayes. Christmas is 3 weeks away, and your options are more limited than you realize. Sometimes standing up for yourself means risking everything. But what's the alternative? Living a lie for the rest of your life." After Marcus left, Eleanor stepped onto the porch. "Mr. Cross." Nathan turned, his face hopeful but cautious. "Yes, ma'am?" "Jamie would be disappointed if you didn't come back tomorrow." The smile that spread across Nathan's face could have lit up the darkening sky. "I'd be honored to return, Mrs. Hayes." "I think I'm the best judge of what's appropriate for my household," she replied. The next 3 weeks passed in mounting tension. Nathan continued his daily visits, but it was the evenings Eleanor treasured most, when the three of them would sit around her kitchen table after supper. The domesticity felt natural, comfortable. There had been other suitors. Word of her situation had spread, bringing a parade of men to her door. Fletcher Davis returned twice with practical proposals. Samuel Porter made an offer himself. Even Doc Morrison approached her. Through it all, Nathan continued to be simply present. He never pressed his case or made elaborate promises. Instead, he showed up each day and demonstrated through actions what kind of man he was. Actions speak louder than words, but are you listening to what people show you, or only what they tell you? The town's reaction to Nathan's continued presence grew increasingly hostile as Christmas approached. Samuel Porter pulled her aside one Sunday morning. "Eleanor, I should warn you, there's talk about you and Nathan Cross. Some folks say you're taking advantage of his simple nature." "Nathan is free to make his own choices about how he spends his time," she replied. "Marcus Brennan's been suggesting that a woman who would associate so closely with a man like Nathan might not be suitable wife material for a respectable gentleman." The manipulation was expertly crafted. By questioning her judgment, Marcus was effectively eliminating her other options. That evening, as Nathan helped Jamie with arithmetic, Eleanor found herself studying him. "Nathan," she said impulsively, "what do you want from life?" He set down his pencil and considered carefully. "I want to be useful," he said finally, "to help people when I can, to have friends who don't think less of me because I'm different." He paused. "I want to belong somewhere." The simple honesty made her chest tight. Marcus wanted power and property, but Nathan Cross wanted nothing more complicated than acceptance and the chance to contribute something meaningful. "What do you really want from life? Not what others expect you to want, but what your heart truly desires." The following morning brought an unexpected visitor. Harriet Coleman knocked just after breakfast. "I hope you don't mind the early hour," Harriet said, "but I felt I should speak with you privately. I've known Nathan Cross for 5 years. Most people see him as simple, but I've watched him, and I've seen things that make me think there's more to his story." "What kind of things?" Eleanor asked. "The way he handles money. He can calculate change faster than most merchants. The books he reads, philosophy, mathematics, literature, that would challenge most educated men." "There's something else," Harriet continued. "I was in Kansas City last month. I saw a man who looked exactly like Nathan coming out of the territorial courthouse, but this man was wearing a good suit and carrying himself like someone important." The revelation sent a chill through Eleanor's chest. When I mentioned it to my sister, she knew who I was talking about. Said he was some kind of legal expert consulted on complicated cases involving property disputes and territorial law. The pieces began to fit together. Nathan's mathematical abilities, his careful way of speaking, his knowledge beyond a simple laborer's education. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because Christmas is 5 days away. I think Nathan Cross is not what he appears to be, and I think you deserve to know that before you choose. Sometimes the person everyone underestimates is exactly who you need." That afternoon, while Jamie napped, Eleanor walked out to where Nathan was working. "Nathan," she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." He nodded. "Always." "Are you really as simple as everyone believes?" For a long moment, Nathan didn't respond. He set down his tools. "Simple is easier," he said finally. "People don't expect much from simple. Simple means you can help without people wondering what you want in return." It wasn't a direct answer, but it was enough. "Why?" she asked. "Why pretend to be something you're not?" His smile was sad. "Because people fear what they don't understand, and they hurt what they fear. Simple is safe. Simple means I can stay in one place long enough to matter to someone." "You matter to Jamie," she said, "and you matter to me." Nathan's eyes met hers. "Even if I'm not what people think I am." "Especially then," she replied. "I've had enough of people who are exactly what they appear to be." Are you ready to choose authenticity over approval? To choose love over convenience? The conversation was interrupted by approaching horses. 3 riders came up the path: Sheriff Daniel Warren, Marcus Brennan, and Fletcher Davis. "Mrs. Hayes," Sheriff Warren called, "we need to have a word with you." There have been concerns raised about Mr. Cross's presence on your property, the sheriff continued. Some folks worry that a woman alone might not be the best judge of character. I can assure you that Mr. Cross has been nothing but helpful and respectful, Eleanor replied. Ma'am, men like Nathan can be unpredictable, Fletcher said. Eleanor stepped closer to Nathan. Mr. Cross's mind works just fine, better than some people I could mention. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Eleanor, you're allowing sentiment to cloud your judgment. And I suppose you're the authority on what's suitable for me? As the man you're going to marry, yes, Marcus replied. Christmas is 3 days away. You'll marry me on Christmas Eve, and Mr. Cross will find somewhere else to spend his time. I haven't agreed to marry you, Mr. Brennan, she said clearly. Don't be ridiculous, Eleanor. You have no choice. The bank will foreclose immediately after Christmas if you haven't secured a husband. Perhaps Mrs. Hayes has other options to consider, Nathan said quietly. All eyes turned to him. The careful humility was gone, replaced by quiet confidence. Men like you don't have anything to offer respectable women, Marcus sneered. Nathan stepped forward. Perhaps you'd be surprised by what I can offer. Is that some kind of threat, Cross? Marcus demanded. It's a statement of fact, Nathan replied calmly. Mrs. Hayes has the right to choose her own husband, and I have the right to court her if she's willing. Nathan Cross was publicly declaring his intention to compete with Marcus Brennan for Eleanor's hand. This is absurd. Marcus sputtered. Nathan's smile was gentle but determined. I believe Mrs. Hayes is capable of making her own decisions based on her own preferences. Eleanor turned to look at Nathan, seeing him clearly for the first time. Mr. Cross, she said formally, would you do me the honor of staying for supper tonight? I believe we have some things to discuss. Nathan's face lit up. I'd be honored, Mrs. Hayes. When the moment of truth arrives, will you have the courage to choose your heart over everyone else's expectations? That evening, as they sat around the kitchen table, Eleanor finally asked the question burning in her mind. Nathan, who are you really? He was quiet for a long moment. Jamie had fallen asleep by the fire. My full name is Nathan Alexander Cross, he said finally. I was a territorial judge in Kansas City for 7 years. I specialized in property law, land disputes, and cases involving women's rights to inheritance and ownership. Eleanor's breath caught. A judge? He nodded. I made powerful enemies by ruling against wealthy landowners who tried to take advantage of widows and orphans. There were threats against my life, so I left and came here. I thought if I presented myself as simple, no one would look too closely. But why continue the charade once you were safe? Because when people thought I was simple, they were kind to me in ways they never were when I was a judge. I could be useful without the burden of authority and expectation. He looked at her directly. And then I met you. I watched you struggle, saw how the town council tried to manipulate you, and I wanted to help. But I was afraid that if you knew who I really was, you'd see me as just another man trying to take advantage. Eleanor's mind raced. You understand property law, then you know whether the bank actually has the right to force me to marry or foreclose. Nathan's smile grew. Your husband's will left the property to you outright. The bank holds a mortgage, yes, but they've been accepting partial payments for 2 years, which legally constitutes acceptance of a modified payment plan. They can't suddenly demand full payment or foreclose without proper notice, which they haven't done according to legal requirements. So Marcus Brennan has been lying? Misrepresenting the legal reality to pressure you into a marriage that would benefit him far more than you. If you'd married him, he would have gained control of your property. You would have lost everything. What can I do? She asked. Nathan pulled out a folded document. I drafted a legal response to the bank's threats. If you sign this and file it with the county clerk, the bank will have no choice but to accept a reasonable payment plan or face legal action for fraud. Eleanor stared at the document. You did this for me? I did it because it's right, he said simply, and because I couldn't stand by and watch you be forced into a marriage you didn't want. Sometimes your knight in shining armor doesn't look like you expected. Tears pricked Eleanor's eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted you to know me as Nathan first, not as Judge Cross, not as someone who could solve your problems with legal documents. I wanted you to see who I really am, He paused. And I wanted to know if you could care for me, just me, before I revealed that I could offer you more than fence repairs and arithmetic lessons. Nathan, she said carefully, are you asking me to marry you? He met her eyes steadily. I'm asking if you'd consider it. Not because you need to save your ranch. This document will do that. Not because society demands it, but because in these past weeks I've come to care deeply for you and Jamie. Because I think we could build something real together based on honesty and mutual respect. He took her hand. I'm asking if you'd marry me because you want to, not because you have to. This is what real love looks like. Not a rescue, but a partnership. Not obligation, but choice. Eleanor felt tears spill down her cheeks. For weeks, she'd been agonizing over an impossible choice. She'd been so focused on finding someone to save her that she'd almost missed the man who'd been offering her something far more valuable. Genuine partnership. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Nathan pulled her gently into his arms. For the first time in 2 years, Eleanor felt truly safe. Not because a man was solving her problems, but because she'd found a partner who respected her strength while offering his own. Once we're married and your property is secure, I'd like to resume practicing law, openly this time, Nathan said. Silver Creek needs someone who will stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Eleanor laughed through her tears. Marcus Brennan is going to be furious. Marcus Brennan is going to be investigated for bank fraud and attempted coercion, Nathan replied. What they tried to do to you was illegal, and I intend to make sure it never happens to anyone else. Justice isn't just about laws, it's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow and clear skies. Eleanor Hayes and Nathan Cross were married in a simple ceremony at the church, with Jamie standing proudly as witness. The day after Christmas, Nathan filed legal documents, not just Eleanor's response to the bank's threats, but also formal complaints against Marcus Brennan and 3 council members for attempted fraud, coercion, and abuse of authority. The investigation revealed that Marcus had been using his position to pressure vulnerable women throughout the territory, forcing them into marriages that gave him access to their properties. Eleanor had been just the latest victim. By spring, Marcus Brennan was facing criminal charges. The town council was dissolved and reformed with new members, including 2 women who'd been victims of similar schemes. Nathan resumed his legal practice, quickly gaining a reputation as a fierce advocate for those wronged by the powerful. Your story doesn't have to follow the script others write for you. You have the power to choose your own ending. 5 years later, Eleanor stood on the porch of the Hayes Cross Ranch, watching Jamie help his stepfather repair the same fence where their story had truly begun. The ranch was thriving. But more than that, Eleanor was thriving. She discovered that she didn't need to be rescued. She needed a partner who respected her strength and complemented it with his own. And she'd learned that sometimes the answer to your prayers comes in the most unexpected package, disguised as something simple, overlooked by everyone else, waiting patiently for you to see what was there all along. Nathan looked up from his work and caught her watching. He smiled, and her heart still skipped a beat. What are you thinking about? He called. About how close I came to making the worst mistake of my life, she called back. And how grateful I am that I finally learned to trust my own judgment instead of everyone else's expectations. Nathan walked toward the porch. When he reached her, he pulled her into his arms. Any regrets? He asked softly. Eleanor looked at her thriving ranch, her happy son, and the man who'd proven that real love wasn't about grand gestures or social status. It was about showing up every day and choosing each other, again and again. Not a single one, she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Your happy ending is waiting, but only if you're brave enough to choose it. What will you decide? Ready to write your own story. Eleanor's journey from desperation to empowerment reminds us that we always have more choices than we think. When society or circumstances try to back us into a corner, we can either surrender to their expectations, or we can find the courage to choose our own path. What's your story? What expectations are you living under that don't serve you? What would change if you gave yourself permission to choose differently? Eleanor chose authenticity over approval, partnership over power, and love over security. What will you choose? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's facing an impossible choice, someone who feels trapped by circumstances, someone who needs to be reminded that they have more power than they realize. Because sometimes the most radical thing you can do is trust yourself. And remember, your knight in shining armor might not look like you expected. Sometimes they look like the person everyone else overlooked, the one who's been there all along, waiting patiently for you to see what was there all along. The question is, are you ready to see it? What impossible choice are you facing today? What would happen if you gave yourself permission to choose differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Don't let your story be written by someone else's expectations. Choose your own ending. Choose love. Choose authenticity. Choose you.